Hi, this is Albert from AWB Electrical and Maintenance Services here in Townsville, and it's not bad actually. Start of the week was pretty average, followed by rain with a bit of humidity, and it's turning out pretty good. I'm just here on a light wave yacht here in the marina here, Breakwater Marina, and initially looked at this boat for the customers because I just had some questions in that, and they've decided they want to change these lead acid batteries, or AGMs, to lithiums, and they went and bought themselves a DC-DC and a stack of lithium batteries. So this boat setup actually isn't too bad to change over. There's a couple of little things that we'll need. The air drive stuff will work generally with lead acid or lithium, it won't care. They've actually got an external alternator charge controller, Balmar unit, which is really good. So that can actually charge. I can either use that to charge directly to this start battery, or I can use it in combination with this DC-DC. They've also got a solar MPPT, and they've got an old Plasmatronics. That one's going there. So part of the reason for this is it does solar as well as the DC-DC. So that basically just kills two birds with one stone to charge this battery from this battery, and it just becomes one nice piece there. So I said there's a little bit of work to do, little few things to do, like I'll change that fuse there because that's not really what I would use. That's more like an audio fuse, and just adjust the connections in that with via the parallel link here. I'm just going to do that, and yeah, so then once that's done, it should be pretty good. So we'll see how we go. So this is a bit of a part 2 from the battery install on this boat. So just upgraded from these deep cycles, these full river deep cycles. They were quite old, originally 2017 and that. So they're upgraded from those, which are, I think they're 105 amp hour batteries, to these 4 120 amp hour lithium batteries. So you pretty much say they're the same but an actual rating, whereas with those you'd say that's probably 50% capacity. So with that there, you'd have effectively about 220 amp hours usable. With this here, you should have just under, theoretically, 400 amp hours of user capacity here. So that's pretty close to double up here. With this install here, I've upsized the battery cables. So these were originally 35mm cables. I've upsized them to 70mm for both the positive and the negative. Put direct battery charging to the banks. So for each bank there, because they've got a EnerDrive 3-bank charger. So I'm using bank 1, bank 2. Bank 1 is going to the lithium, and bank 2 is going to the start batteries. Mainly because the charge profile is optimized for bank 1 on these, and then bank 2 is a secondary bank charge when you're plugged in, and that. So it charges bank 1 first to when it's up to a comfortable state, then it will jump to doing bank 2 after that. So obviously the more important ones are the house battery loads, because you can at least jump start with this to this or whatnot, and there's normally a lot more loads and cycling with this, so as it cycles up and down you want the charging to be better. Part of what I also did too is tidy up a bit of the wiring here, upsize the wiring for the battery charger, move this all around a bit so it's a bit neater. Repositioned this MPPT they've got. Look, at the end of the day, these Paratech units, I don't supply and install them, but it's an okay unit. They also purchased this DC-DC, so this is an iTech World one, similar to your Red Arc BCDs units. So it takes in solar as well, so it's got start battery, solar, house battery, and it will actually do a wire for a smart battery setup if you want to, which we don't need on this. And in addition to that, I've tied up a bit of this wiring. I'm not sure if that was seen before, and I've changed the settings on this BP matrix for the battery in that, so it's displaying the actual capacity, voltage and current a bit better. It wasn't set up quite right for the original battery setup, and it's a little bit, it's going to need still a bit more fine tuning for what it needs. Yeah, and also, as I said, the wiring, you know, the looming and that, so forth. So that looks a lot better than what it was. It was like an absolute dog's breakfast through here. The only thing that's left, there's one last thing I've got to do, is I've got to do something with this battery tie unit. It's an automatic voltage relay which automatically kicks in, and I don't like the way it's working, and you can't have it like that because when this kicks in it actually bypasses this. So I'll have to either modify the wiring or put a manual in there, which I'll just have a think about it, which way I want to go with it, because yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 control wires on it. So I can cheat it and just basically, I could put a double pole switch and just double pole that, which would basically give it the effect. So if I cut these wires here, it would do the same thing as and turn into an emergency tie unit, which is not very hard. I said I'll just do that, then just put a double pole switch in here somewhere, and that would also work as well. So yeah, but as you can see, it looks fairly tidy. It's not very hard to install lithiums. Just a couple of little things if you can watch the video and pick up on that. The original battery set actually had these temp sensors. There's one there I've put, and one there on the positives. As a general rule, you should never have these unless it specifically states it. These on the positive, they should always be on the negatives. Battery temp sensors, always on the negatives of the battery terminals. And the instructions for these batteries actually said you had to put positive here and the negative on the opposite terminal, so basically maintains the current flow through it. These cables, which were the original cables, technically speaking, they're a little bit small in size, but for what, 4 inches, that's fine. That's fine. Like if you're looking to do it, ideally 70 mil, but 50 would probably be okay to do it. I've also put a little bit of core float between the batteries, just for a bit of air gap so the batteries breathe better, and a bit of foam at the front, foam there too, so they're not jammed in hard up against each other. Another thing with this catamaran, it's got a vent. So this is a vented battery box. So apparently for insurance that's required on these boats or caravans or buses or whatever. So this actually had in the original build a vent pipe which goes through the bottom of the hull of this cat. Problem is it was acting like a reflux valve and spitting water up into here. So I got the customer to put in some foam in here, so that foam will breathe through there, like the vent. It's probably a bit heavy in the foam. I would have gone more of an open cell foam, like an air cleaner foam, and then that will just breathe through there, and it'll stop all the salt water, and the salt water will basically coalesce on the bottom of that, and then just drip back down. And then if you want it every 6 months, just pull it out, give it a rinse out, and put it back in. She's good as gold, and that's just a few dollars there. Because yeah, this battery box had a lot of salt water going into it, obviously in rough weather and that. So, and the other thing is too, it does have a Balmer external voltage regulator and a Balmer alternator. So it's got a pretty hefty charge setup off the port motor. So yeah, when I was testing it with that and the solar and that, I was putting out approximately about 60 amps into the battery system, which is pretty good for this type of setup. So like effectively about 700 watts ish of power. So that would cover most, yachts of, this 38-foot catamaran. So that would cover, if that's giving out constant power like that, that would cover most loads comfortably, I think, for a good hour or so with a bit of extra charge going into your batteries. So yeah, if there's any questions, yeah, feel free to put them up and I'll do my best to answer them.